Well, new research from La Trobe University has revealed the most damaging weed in Australia's grain systems can now adjust its growth and reproduction to survive under drought stress. Joining me to discuss the findings is Dr. Ali Bajwa, the lead author of the research and senior lecturer of weed science at La Trobe University. And Ali, a warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us today. How did you and the research team ascertain that ryegrass can effectively change the way it survives and spreads?
Thanks for having me, Moira. Yeah, so we did a controlled environment study where we selected two contrasting populations of this really problematic weed. And we had been receiving information from growers that they're seeing some crazy trends in the field, unusual time of germination and emergence. And that got us thinking that there's something wrong going on in terms of the response of this problematic weed to climatic conditions. So in this study, we created several different soil moisture levels, simulating as if we're going to have different drought conditions. And based on that, we found that basically plant really adapts quickly to dry conditions by regulating its morphology, growing patterns, and more importantly, a lot of the times it was able to basically complete its growth and life cycle and got on to produce seeds, which is obviously a big problem moving forward, because if plants can survive these harsh conditions and reproduce, they're going to be very persistent in the landscape.
So why this particular ryegrass? Why is that such a concern for our Australian farmers?
Well, ryegrass used to be a very desirable species when we had a lot more sheep. So it was introduced as a pasture, and obviously, over the past several decades, we have moved from those pasture lands to produce more and more grain, which meant a lot of the ryegrass seed that was sitting in the soil profile that started to emerge and infest these grain crops, mainly are cereals as well as legumes, which we grow during winter times. And obviously, if it's a plant out of place and causing economic yield losses, that's what we consider it then as a weed. But more importantly, over the past several decades, we have been applying these so-called chemical herbicides to manage weeds, including ryegrass. And what has happened that we have evolved resistance in ryegrass populations against several different chemicals, which limits our ability to control this weed effectively. And in that regard, it's costing us quite a lot in terms of yield losses as well as expenditures which we incur to manage this weed in grain production systems.
And what sort of financial figure can you put on this drought-hardy little bugger that's impacting our growers?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, so obviously we grains industry has been very responsive in terms of managing, but also calculating the cost of this particular species as well as other weeds. And I have an actual figure for you. So it costs us $93 million every year in lost production and expenses for its management. And that's the really mind-boggling figure for a single weed species. And we have quite a few of those that are highly problematic.
So in terms of rethinking weed management in the face of climate variability, where should the focus lie?
Yeah, so historically, we've been really good at finding management options, especially chemical control. But moving forward, as we all know, that climate is changing and these variabilities bring all sorts of challenges. So based on our findings, we believe that there are a lot of ryegrass populations that will become even more difficult to manage under dry conditions. So we should be thinking more broadly and looking at what sort of adaptive features these populations bring on, and how do we respond to these changes in the plant's biology And to do that, we need to be thinking more integrated weed management. And by that, I mean we should be combining chemical control options as well as other non-chemical options.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's
Which we
something that
can.
our farmers do take on. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Dr. Ali Bajwa, thank you so much for your insights today on this challenging drought-hardy weed that's impacting farmers. Cheers.
No worries. Thanks for having me.